They say nothing good ever happens after midnight, but when someone is desperate to get their hands on something, then time becomes irrelevant. Take, for instance, this particular case that happened in 2004, where a man was so desperate for a TV that he ended up killing someone for it, and we're going to tell you everything about it today. So let's start without any further delay. Philip Markoff, also known as the Craigslist Killer, was one of the most wanted criminals at the time. He was involved in a string of robberies and murders. The investigation started with the robbery in a hotel room. After that, there were 3 murders and 2 attempted murder cases linked to him. He used Craigslist and other online classified ad services to trap his victims and rob them. Markoff was a dangerous criminal who was always armed and ready to attack. His modus operandi was to respond to the ads posted by people looking to sell their belongings. After finding a suitable target, he would arrange to meet them in a secluded location to buy the item. However, when the time came, he would pull out a gun and threaten the seller, taking their possessions and money. Sometimes he would even tie them up and leave them there. In some cases, he went overboard and ended up killing the sellers. That's what happened with Julissa Brisman, an exotic dancer who placed an ad on Craigslist, offering a foot massage for $60. This was back in July of 2009. She was just trying to make some extra cash on the side and didn't realize that she was about to meet her demise. When she posted the ad, she had no idea that Philip Markoff would be the one to respond to it. As soon as she received his message, they started chatting. They talked about different things, and eventually they agreed to meet up at her apartment in Rhode Island. Brisman was excited to make some quick cash. She had bills to pay, and rent was due. She didn't know that the person sitting across from her had sinister motives. The moment she opened the door for him, Markoff pulled out a gun and entered her apartment. This took Brisman by surprise. She was shocked and scared. What could she do? The man pointed the gun at her and told her to go into the bedroom. While walking into the bedroom, she called out to her roommate, who was asleep in the next room. He heard her scream and immediately got up to see what was going on. When he reached the bedroom, he saw Brisman on the floor, and Markoff pointing a gun at her. Thinking quickly, he grabbed a baseball bat and swung it at Markoff, hitting him over the head several times. Markoff fell to the ground, holding his head in pain. The roommate helped Brisman to her feet, and the two of them tried to call 911, but the line was busy. Meanwhile, Markoff left the apartment and fled the scene. Brisman suffered serious injuries and was taken to the hospital. Her roommate, meanwhile, was hailed a hero for trying to help her. But sadly, a few days later, Brisman succumbed to her injuries and was pronounced dead. The police were devastated. They had a lead, but somehow Markoff managed to escape. The police found out that he had used a fake name and paid with a stolen credit card. This made tracking him down extremely difficult. They did, however, have a description of his car, a black 2003 Acura MDX. As the police continued their investigation, they uncovered more evidence linking Markoff to the crime. Surveillance footage placed him near the victim's apartment building, and witnesses reported seeing him fleeing the scene. Despite all the evidence against him, Markoff remained elusive. The police were desperate to catch him, but he seemed to have vanished into thin air. But then a break in the case came when a woman contacted the police claiming to have seen a man matching Markoff's description entering a Boston hotel. Acting on this tip, the police searched the hotel and found Markoff's car. They checked the security footage and confirmed that he had been there. The police were now closer than ever to catching him. But as they closed in, Markoff struck again. In the following weeks, there were 2 more murders that shook the city. The first victim was a 24-year-old woman named Melanie Powell, who was found dead in her apartment after responding to an ad on Craigslist. The second victim was a 47-year-old woman named Diana Prawl, whose body was discovered in her home after she responded to an ad on the same website. All these killings had the same MO, which led the police to believe that it was the work of a serial killer. The media picked up the story and dubbed him the Craigslist Killer. The pressure was on for the police to catch him before he struck again. They put together a task force to investigate the killings, and they began combing through the evidence, hoping to find a connection between the 3 murders. As they worked tirelessly, the public was gripped by fear. No one was safe, and the killer seemed to be targeting women who used Craigslist. Then came the break the police had been waiting for. A witness came forward and provided a crucial piece of information. She had seen Markoff at the hotel where he had registered using his real name, not the fake one. With this new lead, the police were able to track him down and arrest him. When the news broke out, people were relieved. Finally, the Craigslist killer was behind bars. But what happened next shocked everyone. At his trial, Markoff pleaded not guilty to all charges, including first-degree murder. The prosecution presented a strong case against him, but the defense argued that there was reasonable doubt. The jury ultimately agreed, and Markoff was acquitted of all charges except for 2 counts of armed robbery. He was sentenced to 18 to 20 years in prison, but he never made it out alive. Just 2 years into his sentence, he was found hanging in his cell. It was ruled a suicide, leaving many to wonder why he took his own life. Some believe he was remorseful and couldn't live with the guilt. Others think he was afraid of what he might face if he were to be released early. Whatever the reason, his death brought an end to the case and provided closure to the families of the victims. Now here's something that makes this case stand out. Markoff wasn't just a random guy who snapped. He had a decent upbringing and a promising future. He graduated from Bridgewater State College with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and criminology. He even worked for the U.S. Marshals Service for a while. So what could have caused him to go on a killing spree? One theory is that Markoff was suffering from mental illness. He had been diagnosed with depression and anxiety and had a history of violence. He had been arrested several times for assault and battery. Another theory is that Markoff was influenced by his friends. He had a group of close friends who were involved in criminal activities, and they may have encouraged him to commit crimes. These friends, along with his ex-girlfriend, were also implicated in some of his crimes, and they faced charges accordingly. Ultimately, we may never know what drove Markoff to commit his crimes. But what we do know is that he was a dangerous individual who got away with murder. The fact that he was able to evade the police for so long shows just how cunning he was. If he hadn't been caught, he might still be out there killing people. And let us tell you one thing. The police had a hard time catching him. They had to rely on tips from the public and follow every possible lead. They also had to work with prosecutors to ensure that they had enough evidence to charge him. And even then, they were only able to convict him of lesser charges. So if you think about it, the fact that Markoff was finally caught and brought to justice was nothing short of a miracle. The question is, how did the police manage to track him down and bring him to justice? Well, it all started with a tip from a member of the public. Someone had seen a man matching Markoff's description and had called the police. This led to a stakeout at the hotel where Markoff had been staying. And when the police searched his room, they found a trove of evidence, including the gun used in the murders and the stolen property from the victims. This is just another example of how the police rely on the public's help to solve crimes. Sometimes the smallest piece of information can lead to a major breakthrough. That's why it's so important to report anything suspicious to the authorities. You never know what might happen. But the police didn't stop there. They also tracked down Markoff's friends and family, hoping to get a lead on his whereabouts. They learned that Markoff had recently been acting strangely and had been talking about ending his life. This information led the police to believe that Markoff was suicidal and that he might be planning to harm himself. With this new information in hand, the police were able to anticipate Markoff's next move and set up a perimeter around his home. They knew that he might try to hide there if they hadn't already found him. And sure enough, when they searched the house, they found him hiding in the basement. When the police finally caught up to him, Markoff resisted arrest and tried to flee. But he was quickly apprehended and taken into custody. At first, Markoff tried to deny involvement in the crimes, but the evidence against him was overwhelming. The police had enough to convict him of all 3 murders, plus the attempted murders and robberies. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Markoff's lawyers argued that he was innocent and that the evidence had been mishandled. But the jury saw through his lies and convicted him of all charges. Markoff was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. and it was only a matter of time before he was executed. And let us tell you, the execution was swift and painless. Markoff was given the option of choosing between lethal injection or firing squad, but he chose neither. Instead, he opted for a third option, the electric chair. According to reports, Markoff was strapped into the chair and a leather strap was placed over his head. Then the switch was flipped, and a strong electric shock coursed through his body. Within seconds, he was dead. His heart stopped beating, and his brain was fried. There was no pain, no suffering, just a quick and painless death. After his execution, the governor of Massachusetts said that Markoff had gotten what he deserved. The families of the victims were finally able to find peace, knowing that the man who had taken their loved ones away was finally dead.